Hello, true duelists. It's YGO Strat's Yu-Gi-Oh! Single card history, where I'm going to be talking about some of the cards that impacted Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout the years, and some of the other ones that just didn't. Today's card, the one that's sure to spike in price once it gets good support, bro. I promise, it's gonna be crazy, bro. Yep. It is Snake Rain. Snake Rain was first released in Tactical Evolution in 2007 as a rare. As of this video, it has seen only one reprint in Ancient Guardians in 2021 as both a rare and as a collector's rare. 14 years later. Also, as of this video, it has spent no time on the ban list. A normal spell card, its effect reads: discard one card. Send 4 reptile monsters from your deck to the graveyard. My god, do I love Snake Rain. It's a card that in just about any other type is beyond broken, but because it's reptile support, nobody cares. Not all types are created equal in Yu-Gi-Oh! Warrior decks have always had Rhoda for more consistency in their builds. Machine decks historically had limiter removal for easier OTKs. And dragons have had their own Foolish Burial in things like Dragon Shrine or Dragon Ravine. Reptiles also got a Foolish Burial, but theirs is on crack, and it's in the form of this card, Snake Rain. The difference is, warriors, machines, and dragons have a precedent of being good in the competitive game. Goki, Infernoble Knight, and Phantom Knights for warriors. Machines have had the likes of Cyber Dragons, Geargia, or Cleafort, and dragons have had Rulers, Chaos Dragons, and things like Dragon Link. All decks that were competitive in their times, and some even after they fell from the top tables, remained solid rogue choices. I think to highlight Reptile's biggest flaws, I'll focus on comparing the Reptiles to dragons in Yu-Gi-Oh! Not just because they kinda look similar enough, but also because the things I've mentioned are playing as much archetypes as they are dragon good stuff. Everyone knows dragons are among the cream of the crop in Yu-Gi-Oh! And beyond having insanely good generic support with the form of Ravine or Dragon Shrine, the most important thing is their monsters they're sending to the grave actually do something. Most infamously, Dragon Rulers could summon themselves from the grave, or if they were banished, could allow you to plus even more with hand advantage. But beyond even the absurdity of good cards like Rulers were in their time, things like Chaos Dragons loved having extra fodder to banish, and things like Eclipse Wyvern were easy ways to both fuel your summons and search for more dragons in your deck. And then there's things like Red Eye's Darkness Metal Dragon that could revive any of your sent dragons for extra deck climbing or just beatdown. Point is, dragons have a lot of good support, and that's only focusing on their Foolish Burial types of effects and support. But this is a video about Snake Rain and not dragons. So what about the reptiles? What do reptiles do? What do reptiles do? I'm not sure if anyone truly knows the answer to that, but based on Konami's card design, it's apparent that they do nothing. Because in over 20 years of card design and with over 10,000 cards in the game, there is a grand total of one deck that has reptiles as its type that has done anything of Bennett from Snake Rain. Ogdoadic, released in 2021, are the first reptiles to have effects of note in the graveyard, being able to revive themselves from grave or other effects to try and plus and make their boards. And Konami introduced them in the first set to ever reprint Snake Rain, Ancient Guardians. And because of how good they could be with Snake Rain, almost all of their effects have a built-in downside that will plus the opponent. Their Stratos will let the opponent draw a card. Their little monster removal will summon a monster from the opponent's grave to the opponent's field as well, effectively trading problems rather than really getting rid of them. And other cards just have effects that allow the opponent to plus in general, adding monsters from grave to hand or things like that, scattered across the entire archetype. Now, granted, credit to the deck, I suppose it's meant to be played with their big bosses on board to mitigate the opponent's plussing, but if I have to summon the big guys to mitigate the effects of the small ones, it doesn't really work out too well when I have to use the small ones to be able to get the big ones out in the first place. Sorry, this is another tangent. These cards look so dope and I wish they were better, man. But they are the absolute best reptiles have by a country mile. Other archetypes, notably that are reptile, I think really only include Alien and Venom. And I mean, notable here's a generous use of the term. Both of these are GX archetypes, which, if you aren't aware, is a synonym for unplayable archetypes. Aliens will require counters that they struggle to distribute, and because coherent card design was optional apparently in 2007, the A counters they're distributing don't have an effect, and they range from being absolutely useless on fields to being, I guess, cute, depending on which aliens you have on board, because unless the alien monster on field says the counters are giving an effect, they don't do anything. They don't reduce attack inherently. They only do it if an alien on board says they do. And then there's Venom, another counter-based deck, funny enough, that tries to reduce the attack as well in a pace that takes so long to accomplish. The word slow implies far too much speed. I don't know why all these Reptile decks were using counters at this time. 07 was weird, I guess. Either way, they didn't accomplish anything. There are other somewhat noteworthy decks that have a sizable Reptile portion, I guess I'll say, like say Worms, but even with Worms limited, I think, regional toppings back in like 2011, nobody played Snake Rain because there just weren't enough good Reptiles with grave effects to warrant using it. I think it's safe to assume the card was really designed to be used specifically with the Venom archetype, or at least I think that's the case. Both this card and Venom as an archetype debuted in Tactical Evolution, and Venom's boss monsters have effects that gain attack for each reptile in the grave. So you can see the purpose pretty simply. Use Snake Rain, flood your graveyard with reptiles, and now your boss monsters can be boss monsters. The problem is, by 2007, Konami was aware of how good a Foolish Burial type effect was. Painful Choice was banned, and for the TCG, Foolish Burial essentially came to the game semi-limited on release, so I don't think it's a coincidence that reptiles were never made with strong graveyard effects, and I believe Ogdoadic kind of proved that they're still hesitant to make them too strong even to this day. Because at the end of the day, for as underwhelming as reptiles are at the moment, this card is just begging to be abused, and anything that's halfway decent with Snake Rain will abuse it as much as they can. Just look at Ogdoadic deck lists. I don't think I've seen a single list that doesn't play 3 of this, because even if that deck does plus the opponent a little too much, this card alone can set up just about every one of their plays by itself. And since it requires a discard, it is entirely possible that this will put 5 reptiles in the grave and not just 4. Really, this card for me is most infamous, not as a card people ever talked about playing, as much as they talked about it as an investment. For years, whenever people would ask about what card they should be picking up to either sell for a profit or before it became meta and so you could pick it up on the cheap, whether it was a Reddit thread, a forum thread, anywhere, everyone always mentioned Snake Rain. It was the most talked about secret, soon to be expensive thing for years. Because yeah, Foolishing 4 is an insane effect, and if a good reptile deck ever got printed, this card would surge in price. There's a precedent for it already too. Super Rejuvenation was unheard of before Dragon Rulers, and they abused it so much it got banned. And I think the best comparison really is Summoner's Art, because it's another spell card, it's also from Tactical Evolution, the same set, and it was also rare, and it saw a huge price spike in 2014. For 7 years, Summoner's Art was unplayable pack filler, probably sought after by like Blue Eyes players or other DM era decks, and worth maybe a quarter. Then Pendulum decks come out, and in fact the first real meta one has a 3 of vanilla monster that's a level 5, and Summoner's Art goes from being useless old pack filler to a $20 3 of staple in a meta deck, essentially overnight. So it makes sense that Snake Rain, a card of the same rarity from the same set that has an even more blatantly broken effect than just searching a vanilla, would one day be worth something. Which is what makes it so funny that the first deck in the entirety of the game to stand a chance to abuse it debuted in the same set that gave Snake Rain its first reprint. I don't think this card ever really broke the $10 mark after Ancient Guardians released, not including the collector's rare print, of course, that's a bit of an exception. It's a little hard to state just how good this card can be beyond just Foolish Burial's insane. Painful Choice is a broken card, and reptile-specific Painful Choice could easily be broken as well. Overall, Snake Rain is truly an insanely good effect of a card for just an insanely underwhelming type. It's one of the few cards that I can think of that is so clearly capable of being broken, but has just remained irrelevant for so long. It's safe to say the card alone is either keeping reptiles from being playable, with Konami scared to print good reptiles in in part due to this, or at the very least, if/when we get a good Reptile deck, this card will swiftly be banned. Just, you know, after a format or two, so Konami can let the new toys be good to promote the new sets. It's a game for us, but it is a business for Konami after all. Gotta love it, eh? And so, that's our look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Single card history, Snake Rain. Stay tuned for our next video, and feel free to suggest some cards to review or what type of video you'd like to see. Don't forget to like, and as always, subscribe to YGO Strats, so you too can become a true duelist.